Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast where my awesome co-host, epic fantasy author Richard H. Stevens and I speak with people from all walks of the publishing industry. Lurking for Legends is a live interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or simply make comments on what you hear in the show. So tonight we have grimdark fantasy author and poet, and those are just the beginnings of the genres that she writes, Jessa Forest. Welcome, Jessa. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing great. We're super excited to have you here. We definitely want to start out with you telling us about your current work, which is called Pulling Teeth and Other Stories. Now, guys, this is an anthology, but it is a very special, unique anthology. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, so Pulling Teeth and Other Stories is a collection of like backstory narratives of my main character, Regina Slaughter, who is the main protagonist in my upcoming collection, contemporary grimdark fantasy called The Slaughter Chronicles. And it came about while just brainstorming what this character is, and I kept trying to start book one of which is my current work in progress, and I kept interjecting that storyline with pieces of my character's backstory, and these stories kept growing and growing and growing, and I had to keep moving them out of the main book that I was working on, because then I would have like a 10,000 word prologue. So I had all of this back matter that I didn't want to just leave sitting or not do anything with. And I thought, instead of leaving it, to just release it as it came into completion. So after I gathered 2 novellas and 3 short stories, I put together a little codex of my contemporary fantasy world, and there you have Pulling Teeth.
And it's fantastic. I'm lucky enough to be Jessa's editor, and I do want to say that, like, while we say anthology, as you're saying, this is one person's story with multiple parts of the story. You're bringing us through her beginnings. So this is like one of those pre-stories, split up by short stories, so it's really easy to read. And I really like your style as well, of you've got some very, very serious stuff in there, and there are societal issues built in, but there's also some really light, fun stuff, some great fantasy aspects that everyone's gonna love, like void creatures and stuff. I'm not giving anything away, I promise. But anyway, yeah, so it is a different kind of concept by having an anthology that's not just random stories. It's actually almost like chapters in someone's life, in a way.
I find it interesting that the anthology is all your own work. For me, when I hear anthology, I think it's a bunch of different authors in this anthology. So you might like some stories, you might not like others. But if you like Jessa Forest, I'm assuming that you're going to like all the stories, because it's all done in Jessa Forest's voice. So that's a neat idea.
I do find it very interesting how different mediums, in terms of like collections, like say for poetry you have chapter books, and for short fiction you have like drabbles and flash fiction, and all of these different elements. And as time goes by, because I thought like, oh, this isn't an anthology, it's just me. But the more I do my research, and especially in self-publishing, I see more more anthologies put together by either one author or a set group, or it's in a set world. But I really enjoyed kind of playing and like introducing myself to new things as a writer, and what sort of new boundaries that I could kind of push or experiment with in publishing.
That's cool. I'm thinking that I'm going to let all our viewers know that this is Jess's very first interview, and you're doing very well.
Thank you.
You are.
But you're doing well. I know it's your first interview. And I also wanted to let everybody know that somebody has a birthday coming up tomorrow.
I do. Tomorrow is my birthday.
And yes. What are you doing tomorrow because of your birthday?
Well, to celebrate my birthday, Pulling Teeth is now free until Sunday. It is a Kindle Unlimited enrolled participant thing, whatever you call it. So it's free to read if you're already a Kindle Unlimited subscriber. But for this week, it's free all around. Usually it's just $1.99 ebook, but now this week until Sunday night, midnight, I think you can, get all the copies for $0.
So is that the Kindle Countdown then? The 5-day Kindle Countdown deal?
No, it's not a Kindle Countdown deal. Those are for $2.99 or above price tags. It's just a free time period. Like they let you choose like 5 business days, and
right.
And they just,
I thought it was called the Kindle Countdown, so I'm correct. I'm stand corrected. So a Kindle Countdown is an actual monetary amount. Is just you slowly go up in increments. Is that how that works?
I guess I've never tried it before, so I'm not too sure on that, but I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it is too. It's different for us Canadian authors. That the Amazon treats us a little bit differently as far as taking advantage of some of the stuff on Amazon. We're getting there, but we're a little bit behind the curve right now. So Christy might know a little bit more about the Kindle Countdown deals.
I actually know nothing about Kindle Countdown.
We'll move on then.
I've really not done a whole lot of sales with my books yet. So but it's something that I would be interested in. I know more about the Smashwords stuff. With those kinds of deals that you can do, they offer once or twice a year. You can put your book, and if you've gone wide with Smashwords, you can put your book into their special, I forget what it's called, like a holiday catalog or something similar. And you actually have options on what prices you want it to be. And it can get seen more. I have had some luck with that, with, just being seen by different people. So yeah, we've got like a panel of people who have no idea how a Kindle Countdown works.
I will research that. I should know that. These things go right through my head and then I can't remember them anymore. So
you guys can check out in the chat. I'm sure you already saw, we put the link down below where you can grab her book. And like I said, it's free and it is in the top 100 of 2 Amazon categories already. So, this is the time you want to grab it.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting that link there, Richard. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I just found that out actually. And I've never thought, like, I have indie author writer friends who like have that orange, the little orange banner by their name. And I'm like, oh, I'll never get there. And then it's like, oh my God, top 100, like ever, like in the whole thing.
that's awesome. Good for you.
Exciting.
So very nice. Yay.
So you also have a newsletter, of course, that people can join. And that one is an end of month newsletter. And I know that you share a bunch of things in there. So you can tell us a little bit about the newsletter itself. And there's like a special little thing at the bottom, beta bites, I won't say anymore. You tell us.
Yeah. So I like to, when I was researching how to do a newsletter, because I love doing research before I do anything. I found a lot of authors either give advice or, hi Kate, and hi Mike and JD and everybody else here. I love you all. Thank you for coming. They either do like author advice or they share their experience. And I get really particular and perfectionistic, if that's even a word, with how I present ideas about craft. And we can talk for hours about that. But I wanted to do something a little bit more personal and a little bit just more real and sort of more like, here's, this is what publishing means to me and this is what writing means to me. So I like to share a lot of my experiences, which is why I do an end of the month as opposed to the beginning of the month, because then one, I can share like cool things that happen to me at the end of the month and actually have content, and then also just like give something that's like a genuine kind of thing to share. So like my website, which also has a blog, is sort of more like if we went out and had like a fancy dinner or whatever, and we all got dressed up and it was like like we're all very formal. And then my newsletter is like, y'all come into my house and we have coffee and talk about writing. So, and then at the end of it, I do have little pictures of my beta fish that I call beta bites. I got a beta named Lucky during the very start of the pandemic, I needed a pandemic pet because my cats weren't enough. And you know, it's just something that you know, to have fun, and he sits on my desk and he helps me write. So every month I share exclusive beta pictures with my newsletter subscribers.
The cool thing about that is if you can teach them how to read, they would be beta readers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Beta readers. No, yeah.
Word, perfectionistic. If you're a fantasy author, any word is a real word. So it depends on what genre you're writing in. Christy might not be able to get away with it, but I can get away with it.
I'm sorry, I'll edit it out. I apologize. But speaking of your newsletter, I know, you know, like you're saying, you allow us to kind of see like behind the scenes a bit and more the real, you know, like what's actually going on with, you know, the writing career and your works in progress and things like that. And one of the things, you know, you're very open about your experiences, which I, of course, really love seeing. I love seeing the truth behind someone's actual, you know, career and how it's going and stuff. I find that so encouraging and inspiring, no matter what it is that you're sharing. So like, you know, one of the things you did at some point was you kind of restarted your author career, and you do both poetry and grimdark, but you kind of had like a career before this and did like a reboot. Can you tell us a little bit about like what made you make that decision? Because there are loads of authors out there who may want to do the same thing, but be unsure about it.
Sure, absolutely. So to kind of condense it, I started self-publishing in 2016 after almost 4 years of not writing. In 2012, I earned an MFA in creative writing from Goddard College in Vermont, and I had a huge poetry manuscript. It was experimental, free verse, like, you know, some people called it like, you know, a head trip. Like it was, you know, it was very like you know, like aesthetically placed words. And I was pushing so hard to try to get that traditionally published. And I kept getting rejection after rejection after rejection, on the heels of being published in print and online magazines for standalone poems 3 or 4 times a month. So it was a little bit of a combination of losing sort of the safety net of an academic structure. And that's like a whole nother thing. Like academics is heavy in my identity because my mother's a college professor. She's been one for 40 years. And, you know, I went through like academic institutions up to a master's degree. Last year I went back to school for my 3rd degree in something completely different. So, you know, graduating and reaching sort of the highest level that I could go with creative writing, I had to sort of really, you know, it was like one of those thresholds that you cross. It's like, well, what do you do now? And I had no idea what to do. And so for almost 4 years, I did not write anything new. And after bouncing around a couple different jobs and things, I sort of came to a conclusion that if I don't support my own writing and put things out for myself, no one else is going to do it. And I don't mean that in a no one's ever going to publish me boo-hoo, because there is a market for everyone. I had a poetry chapbook published in 2011 that the editors of that small press rejected initially. And then a year later, they contacted me saying, hey, we have some slots to fill for our catalog. Is your book still available? And I was like, oh, well, it's not, because somebody else published it, but I can send you something new, because that was when I was still doing new things. And they were like, yeah. So, you know, things do, if you're persistent, you can, it will eventually happen. But I learned sort of the hard way that I wasn't investing that in myself. I was counting on others for validation. And that's when I started self-publishing. So I took that big, hefty poetry manuscript and I put it up on Smashwords and Kobo and Barnes and Noble, and I put it up for free. And and it got like 400 downloads, and then, you know, flatline. You know, we all see that kind of flatline, those of us in self-publishing. And after that, I thought, well, you know, and I was writing that pink cloud of, you know, yes, I am a poet, I am validated, you know, I believe in myself. And then it was like, and another now what? And again, I had no idea. But it did lead me to some interesting experimentation in fiction. And that was sort of around the same time where I started writing some of Regina's story in the Slaughter Chronicles, and where some of the first drafts of the stories in Pulling Teeth came up. And again, it took me a couple more years to actually build up the courage to say, oh yeah, I can write fiction. Because like 10 years ago, if like you came to me and said, Jessica, you're going to have a short story collection put out and you're going to be working on a novel, I would have been like, no, you're nuts. Like, I can't do that. Like, I write poetry. Like, I can't, long words, no. Like, you know, books, like thick books, no, I can't do that. And it was getting over telling myself that I can't do that, that really helped me sort of evolve my author business into something of what it's looking like today. And a lot of that is investing in myself, investing in an editor. One, you know, Christy is my wonderful editor, and I appreciate you so much. And just being more conscious about the business side of things, like, you know, nobody really likes marketing, and nobody really likes, you know, market research, but, you know, it's, you know, we don't like math either. You know, we don't like paying bills, but we got to do that too. So it's sort of like, you know, you take what you like with what you don't like. And you say, if I'm going to invest in myself, these are the things that I have to do. So it's been kind of a journey. I hope that wasn't too rambly. It sounded really rambly.
That was exactly what we were asking. No, it was perfect.
No, I like what you said about there's a market for everybody, because you know, there's some pretty famous authors that went through what you did too. J.K. Rowling couldn't find anything for her little Harry Potter Scholastic series until Scholastic picked it up. And Stephen King, and how many times he got rejected, and look what's happened to these people. So there is a market for everybody. It's the perseverance, and that's the tough part about being an author is, especially in early days, you know, no one knows about you, so no one's going to be looking for you, and no one's going to be reading you at first. So it's just word of mouth, and it's like they say, it's a marathon. To be an author, you're running a marathon. You're not running a sprint. So just if you believe in yourself, the world will come to believe in you in good times. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Yeah, that's as you're saying, and patience, you know, that goes exactly along with all of that, just having patience. And, you know, we all want to see results right away, but that's not how it works for almost anybody. So, you know, it is definitely a matter of patience. And I really like all the advice you just gave there, Jessa. I think it's very motivational.
So
Mike Feria said he just picked it up on Amazon Kindle. So I'm assuming he just picked up Pulling Teeth. So,
Thank you so much.
We sign off. I will pick it up as well. So Jess is offering her birthday present to her readers. So if everybody wants to grab a free copy and help her rankings go up a little bit more, that'd be awesome.
It's all about the rankings. Give me. Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Fantastic.
So before we went on, we were talking. You and I were talking before Christy even came in. We got sidetracked right away on D&D, and you are a D&D player, and some of your stories have the D&D in it, and you mentioned that you have trouble sometimes with some of the factions putting the D&D stories into your books. What does it give you trouble with? Like, what are you struggling with?
Okay, so and again, this is something I could easily go off on a tangent about. One of the biggest things is, as you know, with any kind of group of friends, you get together and you're telling each other stories. That's basically what the role-playing games and the tabletop games are, is like you're living in a real-time, like, you know, oral tradition going on. And one of the biggest things is keeping those inside jokes that you develop within your group, and like those sort of like either movie references or TV show references that, you know, we tend to sort of throw in, or at least in some of the groups that I've played with. I do play like a lot of campaigns with my husband. We're doing the long distance thing right now, so we haven't really done anything like that in a while. But you know, we played D&D campaigns together, and World of Darkness and Vampire the Masquerade, and there's always like a, you know, a side character that's, you know, a homage to, you know, something from a TV show that we're watching. And that's sort of been the biggest thing to watch out for, is saying like, oh, this character is really funny, but when I write it out, it's like, oh, that's like, you know, say like Dr. Roxo from Metalocalypse, or that's like a Rick and Morty character, or, you know, so sort of like taking these pieces and putting my own original twist on them, or changing them and seeing what does that change do to the story. Like if I take a comical character and make them serious, what's going to happen? If I take a serious character and they just have like a really embarrassing moment, what does that do for the story? So that's probably the biggest thing. That and like copywriting names. A lot of my husband's characters, like I'll say, oh, that's a cool person, I want to put them in as a side character, and I put their name, and I'm like, wait, where did you get their name? And he's like, oh, that video game. I'm like, oh no, I've got to come up with a new name now.
Yeah, that's true. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, and you know what you're saying plays into your fiction, of course. Like, you know, you're talking about how it plays into your fiction, but at the same time, we have literal examples from you where you've talked about in the past, here and there, about like a character changing his personality on you, like just completely changing his personality, and that's tough. I mean, I've had characters do that too, and sometimes it causes a lot of rewriting and stuff. So like what kind of advice can you give to people? I know this happens probably mostly to pantsers, but you know, just in general, what kind of advice would you yeah, we have a panel of pantsers here. What kind of advice would you give to somebody if they're noticing that their character is kind of like slogging along and it just doesn't feel right? Like, how do you, you know, move past that and figure out, oh, here's what the problem is, let me redo things?
It takes sort of a lot of trial and error, a lot of just writing and then staring at what I've written, and, you know, trying not to like do that, you know, dark pit of despair of like, this isn't working and it's crap and I hate it. One of the things that, and this actually happened, I had a manuscript back from 2016 that I've put away from another series that I haven't finished, where I got to, it was a NaNoWriMo project, and I got to the 50K mark, and one of my protagonists said, oh no, I'm the villain. And I was, and killed someone very important on stage. And I was like, I really like that. And now I have to change everything. And I still haven't changed everything yet, because that's like such a daunting task. But, and even though it is daunting, and even though can be very hard sometimes to face those rewrites, especially if you like what you've done so far, is to, my advice would be like, let the character do what it wants, because your brain is making this happen for a reason, whether or not you can see it. Now for standalone books, it's a little bit easier to sort of say, oh, okay, if I do this. But as I'm writing a series, I'm trying to be more trusting of where my characters sort of go in spontaneously, because I know somewhere there's a connection that I just, you know, that like the forefront of my brain hasn't really thought of yet. So definitely, like, even though it's painful, like, don't try. My advice would be, just based on my personal experience of it failing miserably, is do not force your characters to do anything. And if you have to like think of your character as your imaginary friend and as like its own person, like I talk about my characters like they're real, because that just helps my it's more like, okay, this is what she's doing today, or this is what he's doing after this happens. That helps me. I know some people don't like it, but for some people it can be very helpful. If that helps you, great. If not, fine too. This is why I don't know about advice, but is I can get really picky with how I present ideas. But yeah, just let them do what they want, because you're going to be happier, and you're going to end up, I think, or for me anyway, not wasting as much time. Because if you force it and you write what you originally planned, then if you hate it, you have to go back and rewrite it. So
those are great points. And I want to bring up just a comment that Mike Faria had, a horror and fantasy author. He says, in my experience, the longer I spend away from my writing projects, the harder it is to get back into them. Also, I run into trouble because I begin forgetting important information. I have certainly had that happen as well. Have you both experienced that too?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I forget. I call my husband my second brain, because we do a lot of brainstorming sessions together anyway. And especially when I'm stuck, I say like, hey, what is Kyrosera doing? Like, what is Azir doing right now? And he'll be like, oh yeah, they're over here doing this and this. I'm like, thank you. But I have notes scattered all over my room, just in, notebooks, digital files, like loose leaf sheets of paper. I don't do the Post-it note thing anymore because I've learned, but last year I had a whole wall that was just covered. And that in itself, like for me, got very overwhelming and like stifled the writing, because I was like, I have too many options. I don't know where I'm going. So, but yeah, Mike, yeah, no,
I use Excel spreadsheets now. So every time I make up a character, if I give them blue eyes, it goes straight in an Excel spreadsheet. And I write in one great big universe. So whenever I refer back to that person, I just have to go to Excel spreadsheet, and I got all the information right there. So because I can't remember them either. Like you get 1,000, 100,000 words, million words into a series. Like what happened a million words ago is kind of, especially my brain, is kind of foggy. So it's nice to have those Excel spreadsheets. I still use stickies when I'm editing. So as I'm editing, I won't stop on the screen. I'll just use stickies and throw them on my computer. And then as soon as I get done my edit, go through my first draft, I will go through all my stickies and tidy up all the loose ends. But that's the extent of my stickies now.
Nice. Yeah. One thing that I've started doing is the comments in either Pages or Word, and I'll say something like, I think this is where this character first comes up, or I'll say like, verify this later or check this later, and just highlight it, put a comment in, and then at the end I go through and I check all those, just little reminders for self. Sorry, I interrupted you, Christy.
No, not at all. No, I was going to say, the Post-its get really out of control really fast, don't they? Like, it seems like such a good idea, and then all of a sudden you're like piling them on top of each other, and you can't even read them anymore. Like that used to happen to me. I would just have such an area that was just covered with them, and then I'd have to start putting on top. And then, like, what am I doing? It's obviously all disappearing under itself. So, like, yeah, it's, Richard mentioned Excel. That's really good. And in the comments, David has mentioned Scrivener. I also use Scrivener. And I've been meaning to make a timeline. Actually, I'll probably use Excel or something like for that, because I'm going to have a lot of crossovers going on. So, any of these things that work, anything that works so that you spend less time picking up your paperback when it's out and like going back through, where did I see this, or like searching your document. It's so annoying. It really keeps you from the writing, so much.
Yeah, it's got to be something that works for you for sure. And I think as we develop as writers, we find different ways that work for us. I know some people like writing stuff out by hand right away first. And to me, I could not do that. I want it to be on the screen, so when I edit it, it's there. I don't want to write the whole thing over again. I'm a slow typer. So
sometimes I write things in notebooks to start, and then it reaches like a point where the idea has gotten to the point where it's big enough that I need to move it on. I know that sounds probably really inefficient, and it probably is. I couldn't tell you why it works, but for some reason it just does. I don't know.
And that's it. Whatever works, that's what you need to do. And I do, like, I always have a notepad by my bed, and if I have an idea, I'll jot it down really quick. And sometimes I will like just freehand just to see what comes out. But yeah, for the most part, I type everything out because I can't. I'm the same as you, Richard. I like seeing it where it's gonna. But then I have this big block of text, and I don't write linearly, which is really not helpful. I wish that I could write linearly, and if I'm saying that right, that word sounded weird to me for some
It is
reason.
now. No, it's right now.
Linearly. I'm just making up words today. But yeah, it's never been, unless I'm almost finished with the book and I'm filling in like those holes. It's just, what is it going to be today? Like today I wrote a scene for book 5.
Yeah.
It's the first thing I've written for book 5. I don't know. Is it going to stay? Maybe. I hope so. It's a neat idea, but just whatever comes out that day.
So you I know you mentioned that you say you jumped into book 5 there. So you have complications that can happen with different types of storytelling. So how does that mess you up?
Oh, so much. And I think that's probably why I haven't finished the first book yet. I have a rough, like I'm definitely a pantser or discovery writer, but I do have the majority of the whole series outlined, at least roughly. And that's not written down. That's just based on, well, some of it's written down, but, mainly based on conversations between me and my husband. Like he really is like my second brain. But a lot of what can happen, like, as I write book 1, and then as I think of something else that happens later, you can have, like, I have what I could sort of sprinkle in earlier in the books to sort of lead up to that point, if it's something that is related to what's going on in the plot of the first book. Or I have, like, it's either the plot or the character. And if it's character, then I do end up having more issues, because you can always tweak the plot. You can always say, oh, she went left instead of right. Or, oh, she did, like she chose not to kill this person or not to let this person live, because we're, it's fantasy and there's combat, like it happens. But if it's a character doing something, then like, or if it's a character that needs to be introduced, or a like sort of a major reveal with a character, then I do have more difficulties there, because it's like, how do I, one, make it seem genuine? And as Richard, you in the series, might have, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this as well, is how to make it genuine and how to make it, but not take it too seriously. It's that sort of, I really don't want to use that word organic, because, like, if you take yourself too seriously, I think that you lose a lot of the nuance. But yeah, that was a long-winded way to answer that. But
No, that's okay.
Complications exist.
As writers, there is really no right way to answer it, because we're all different. So, and that's what makes the storytelling so unique and so enjoyable for the readers. If we all wrote the same way, I think it'd be pretty boring for someone to pick up a book. So, as far as myself, I try to add humor sometimes in the story. I try to play in the emotions, and every now and then you got to add something that even when I edit, it makes me want to grab a tissue, because even though I wrote it, I know what's going to happen. That when I'm reading through it, I do live reads. I'm sitting here, well, don't do that on friggin' air with people watching. But it's true, because you get so involved with the characters.
Yeah.
But and if you can elicit the emotion in your reader, they're going to come back, because that's what they're reading for, right? They're reading for the emotion, the emotional journey.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would think that if you feel like that strongly about it, then you are doing it right, because obviously it can make you cry or laugh or whatever, and you're the one who knows what's happening anyway. I feel like you yourself are the hardest person to really make feel those emotions, because you see it more like a surgeon kind of, if that makes sense. It's definitely more distant in some ways because, you know, you're creating the story. So like in some ways you're very close to your characters and you feel close to them. And then in other ways, because you know what's happening and you know the overall plan and stuff, it's like almost harder to make yourself feel something. So when you do, you're like, okay, this is good. That's good. Yeah, this is going to work.
I love how you said that. That is so true. And it's like sort of that, not just the editor brain switching on and off, but it's like, as you know, as like storytellers, as sort of facilitators of this, you know, this universe, we have to, you know, almost have that kind of objectivity and that distance so that we can get the story out of us. And then like, you know, you go back and you read something, you're like,
Yeah.
like I wrote that, like, and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, you know, take a character who's, you know, gone through a lot of very difficult situations, and you know, she hasn't had the like in the first and second novellas, I get into more of her relationship with her mother. Is in Pulling Teeth, she goes from age 11 to 13. And even though her mother is not with her at this time, she has a lot of memories. And a lot of those didn't come up until I was in the editing stages. And it was similar things like that. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I'm writing, I'm like, yes, suffer. Like all these bad things happening. And then there's another part of me that's like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry I did that to you.
And that's some of the best stuff. It definitely is.
Yeah, no, it's so satisfying and gratifying when you struggle through scenes. You know, a lot of those emotional scenes they feel like a slog when you're writing them sometimes, and sometimes they come really quick, like a fight scene. But some of the scenes you struggle through them, and you know, I don't think I pulled that off. And then you go back to edit, and you go, wow, that's actually really touching, or you know, heart wrenching, or whatever. And you go, wow, I actually did a good job on that. But when you're writing it, sometimes it doesn't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is it about? It is funny. What is it about writing it that you feel like you did a terrible job and then you exit out and come back to it like the next day or something and you read it totally differently and it's actually really good. I'll never understand like what happens there.
I think we're our worst critics for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. And the only thing I can think to it is for me personally, like when I sit down to write, I have goals that I want to, you know, or milestones that I want to achieve. It's not just like, okay, I have to get through 3 chapters today. It's sort of more, I want to get to this plot point. And even if I've written like that thing for that I wrote yesterday for book 5, like, you know, that was not my goal. And I, even though I was like, okay, this is good, you know, I wasn't really appreciating where I was in the moment of like, hey, I'm writing and this is great. You know, this is a great experience for me. I'm expressing myself, you know, I'm playing with my characters. I was just like, this isn't chapter 10. Like, why am I not writing chapter 10 of book 1? I don't need you right now. And, you know, that's kind of a disservice, like, you know, to me, because, you know, it's sort of like, all right, it's going to be okay. Like you make your own schedule, Jess, like, all right. That's just me personally.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And it is funny because like whether you're writing what you said, you know, this is like for a book down the line, or whether you're you know, writing something like just a general idea that you have for maybe even a different series or book or like just something totally separate. Sometimes you just don't know when those things are going to somehow interweave together. I've had just general ideas I've written down end up in the same piece that I never imagined could go together and wouldn't have made sense before. But, you know, when you allow yourself that creativity, like you're saying, you just don't know what your like subconscious is doing back there, you know, putting things together for you for the future. I think it knows things. It knows a lot more than I do for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's awesome. You've sparked a lot of conversation amongst all the viewers there. They're really going on about notes and scribbling and chicken scratching and all the ways that they try to keep track of their writing. And so that's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So is there one thing that you'd like to tell your viewers today? What's new? What's coming up in Jessa Forest's world? Or
don't forget your short story in in one of those recent anthologies.
That is true. As we were talking about things that you wouldn't know where it would go down the line, I wrote 17,000 words of a what was going to be like a standalone epic fantasy, and it ended up falling to pieces. But I really like the backstory for this one character. And I actually ended up turning that into a short story that is available in a wonderful anthology by All Worlds Wayfarer. It's called Through Other Eyes, and it's on Amazon. I have links on my website to it, but it's a wonderful speculative fiction anthology of different writers. Yeah, it's not just me. There's like 30, I think, like, you know, there's at least, I think, 30 stories in there, and they're in, you know, above and beyond wonderful. Like, I have no words for it. They're just so wonderful. There's one about a cat, and it's, you know, and
The cat, yeah.
you know, it's wonderful. So if you like speculative fiction, definitely check out Through Other Eyes. I am planning on releasing book 1 of the Slaughter Chronicles in August of this year, but in the meantime, and this is not really like book related, but I might be opening a Redbubble sticker store where you can get like stickers from the Slaughter Chronicles. And yeah, I have like the monster skull on the front cover of Pulling Teeth. That's going to be a sticker. I have a couple of my creatures are going to be stickers, and eventually it's a paranormal contemporary fantasy with monsters and monster hunters, and there's different divisions and different types of hunters and different types of monsters. So like each division has its own little symbol. So I'm working on those, and there might even be a webcomic coming out this summer. So lots of different art things going on. So if you want any news or updates, sign up for my newsletter. It is free. And I'm trying to get a nice reward for my subscribers. I haven't quite figured it out yet because I'm sort of between rewards at the moment because I'm focusing on editing. But yeah, and just, you know, get the book while it's free because I love giving out free stuff. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you for being with us today. And we're honored that you chose us to be your first interviewers. And I hope it wasn't too bad for you. You did very well.
Yeah, you did.
I had such a great time. And thank you so much for having me. It's been really, really lovely. Thank you so much.
So everybody here and everyone that comes on and checks it out later, grab Jessa Forest's The Slaughter Chronicles, Pulling Teeth and Other Stories. It's an anthology written by Jessa. It is now free until what day?
Until the 27th.
Until the 27th. So you can get it to almost the end of the month. So pick it up. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it'll help Jessa move up in the rankings. That'll be super. And just before we go, I know Christy's got a little bit of news she wants to share with you, and then I will share a bit of news, and I'll introduce next week's guest.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody knows that, you know, I just did the cover reveal for The Artist, which is my latest Dark Victoriana collection short story. It is a standalone. It's Civil War era, right after the Civil War. And like I said, it's part of the Dark Victoriana collection, but you can read it all by itself. So it does feature a war veteran and an artist and the ad he puts out. And one of these things is lying. So which one is it going to be? It's a little bit longer than The Wrong House. If you like The Wrong House, you'll probably like this as well. So if you're into suspense, historical, anything having to do with the Victorian era, anything fast-paced, you will probably enjoy it. It is 99 cents on Amazon, so you guys can go check that out. And it's also on, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, Kobo. It's kind of everywhere, so you can pre-order it. And it'll be coming out on March 30th. I'm super excited about it, and I am also already working on the next Dark Victoriana collection short story. So lots to look forward to there.
That's awesome. And we are just new into the Christy Stratos universe. My wife just read the first 2 books. Christy was kind enough to send them up to autographed copies to Canada, and she absolutely loved them. And she left some nice reviews online for Christy. So definitely check her out. As far as myself, I got a couple of exciting events happening in my Soul Forge universe. If anyone doesn't know, I write in one universe. I've got plans in my head for about 30 books, probably 35 to 40 by the time I'm done. I just completed the first draft of Keeper of the Jewel, and it's the longest book I've written so far. And it came in at 147,000 words, and I've edited up to 149,000. So I seem to be adding as I go. I don't detract when I'm writing. So, and it should be available late spring. I want to take advantage of the Amazon algorithms. So I'm going to try and release this book and the next couple in the series within about 28 days of each other to try and get my rankings up there. And also, I just finished working with my amazing narrator, Mikhail Roberts. If you haven't checked his voices out, he's amazing. He just finished narrating Into the Madness yesterday, and we hit submit to Audible, and they are now it's in Audible's hands. So they're a little slow. I'm anticipating it'll be out hopefully by the end of March. So when that happens, I'll announce it on all my social media channels, and we'll have free codes for everyone in the US and the UK to pick that up. So that is what's going on with me. And next week, we're going to have speak with New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. Wow, I can't speak. I'm an author, but I can't speak. Best-selling author Eva Lesko Natalio. Her best-selling book, The Memory Box, is a psychological thriller about a woman who Googles herself and discovers the shocking details of a past she doesn't remember. So that sounds like it's going to be a really good one. So for historical suspense novels, Christy Stratos and Jessa Forest, thank you for being here today. We wish everybody an amazing week. And until we meet again, we wish you all to take care.